What is up, y'all? Welcome to Defense Diaries. This is the docket. We're going to give you just facts, and it's a short notice, as always is the case with Delphi, because obviously, the news drops. We all find out about it. We all start wondering what it's all about, freaking out. And today was kind of significant news. If you don't know, I'm assuming if you're here, you probably do know. But Rich Allen was moved last night from Westville Penitentiary, and they moved him to Wabash Valley Correctional, which is another prison. And there's Allison walking around in the back. So it's a strange move for a lot of reasons. Basically, what I want to do with this live is I want to go through the notice and just talk about the notice, and then we'll look at the statute that they cite, that they said that they moved him pursuant to this particular statute, and try to understand exactly what happened here, and maybe try to figure out why, because it's a strange move to me. Like, I'm having a hard time understanding why exactly it happened. So here, I'm going to pull up the notice that was filed, so we can see if we can figure out what's going on with that. And let me blow it up a little bit. Okay, I can't tell if it's blurry for y'all. It seems like it might be a little blurry for y'all. All right, so this is what we've got. We've got notice regarding transfer of defendant. So the Indiana Department of Correction, a non-party, by counsel, respectfully notifies the court as follows. Paragraph 1, defendant Richard M. Allen was placed under a safekeeping order by this court on November 3rd of 2022 and confined within the Indiana Department of Corrections throughout the pendency of this action, or is otherwise determined by the court. Now, if you guys will remember, this is what the first safekeeping hearing was about. Rosie and Baldwin kind of got into the weeds with this, trying to understand like how this even happened, because when Allen was originally moved, that happened without hearing as well, much like this one. And as we kind of get to it, when we get to the actual statute, you'll see that really this has to be technically, if they're following the procedural rules, that it should be done upon motion. I've had Shay on here. I've had Kara on here, and both of them have told me, with respect to Indiana law, they kind of play fast and loose with the rules a little bit. Sometimes that statutes that are requiring notice or that a motion be filed, that it's not unusual for them not to do it, and that it doesn't really have an effect on anything. But it's still interesting in the sense that there's so many eyes on this case. And obviously a move like this is going to cause people to wonder what's up. And obviously I was wondering what's up. Why are they moving? The timing is weird. We've got the ruling from the Supreme Court that's pending. We're all dying for that thing to hit. And, the timing of it is just very odd to me, is the best way to put it. All right, so paragraph 2 is pursuant to Indiana Code section 3533-1-1, the commissioner of the Indiana Department of Correction may transfer an individual under a safekeeping order to a facility deemed suitable for their confinement with available space. All right, so and when I get to that section, and I was messaging a couple of attorneys, Indiana lawyers, this morning. I'm like, man, this reads weird. It's like when I pulled that statute up and I was looking at it, and when we get to it, you'll see in terms of what it's entitled and basically what that particular section in and of itself is saying. It doesn't mention the language that they're talking about with respect to that the Department of Corrections may transfer an individual under a safekeeping order to a facility deemed suitable for confinement. Like, it doesn't state that specifically in that portion of the statute. So, like, the fact that they use that portion of the statute is interesting to me. and I'll tell you why in a second. So paragraph 3, on December 6th of 2023, Mr. Allen was transferred from Westville Correctional Facility to Wabash Valley Correctional Facility. And then paragraph 4 states that the Indiana Department of Corrections anticipates continuity of services and care provided to Mr. Allen at the Wabash Valley Correctional Facility. Now, as we all know, there's a lot of dispute as to whether or not he's getting any care or service over there. So, and then it's signed off by the Attorney General. Now, his name is listed. It's actually signed off by another Assistant Attorney General, an underling of his. But his name's still on it. The bottom line is the order came from the top. Whoever signed the order, to me, is really irrelevant. He's listed with his attorney number on there. So, he's the guy. Now, I've heard all kinds of things about Rokita. I am not an Indiana resident, so I don't follow Ted Rokita's career in the sense that, I've got people telling me all kinds of things about him that, that I don't know if they're true or they're not true. I've seen some things, obviously, in the news, and, they raise questions, but in terms of me knowing exactly who this guy is or what he's about, I don't know. So, like, in terms of what his motive is behind this move, makes it all the more interesting considering everything else kind of going on with this case right now. So, all right, let me pull this dude off. I don't want to bring up the next screen, which is basically the statute. So let me pull this guy off, share the screen again. Wait, actually, let me go back here, shut this dude down. And all right, so this is the actual statute that we're going to be looking at. And it's interesting because this particular statute, and this is the section that's cited in the motion itself. And as you can see from the heading, it's an inmate in county jail. Obviously, he's not in county jail. In imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death, or represents substantial threat to safety or others. Now, as far as we know, that second portion, the substantial threat to safety of others, is not the issue with Rick Allen. What does seem to be of concern is imminent danger of seriously bodily injury or death. I know that there's plenty of people out there that are extremely concerned about his well-being in Westville. So basically, let's just read through it. It's short, and it says, upon motion by the sheriff, 2, the prosecuting attorney, 3, defendant or his counsel, 4, attorney general, or 5, the court. So we know that Rosie and Baldwin came under this same statute with paragraph 3 with respect to the safekeeping order and trying to get him moved a couple of times. One went to hearing, the other one, the second one, the judge just dismissed summarily without any hearing. And that was back when everything was going insane, and on the October 19th date. And additionally on the 31st of October as well. So this is the language from it: alleging that an inmate in a county jail awaiting trial. So let's read it. Upon motion by, in this case, the attorney general, alleging that an inmate in a county jail awaiting trial is in danger of serious bodily injury or death, or represents a substantial threat to the safety of others, the court shall determine whether the inmate is in imminent danger of serious bodily injury or death, or represents a substantial threat to the safety of others. Now, we know, because what we looked at first was not a motion. That was a notice. That was a notice just saying, hey, we moved Richard Allen yesterday. We're just letting you all know. So they're not following the procedure. I mean, we can see that right away. So there's no motion that's been filed by the attorney general. There's no court that has determined that he should have been moved. So basically the AG just ran a power move here and moved Allen on his own accord. And then it says, if the court finds that the inmate is in danger of serious bodily injury or death, or represents a substantial threat to the safety of others, it shall order the sheriff to transfer the inmate to another county jail or to a facility of the Department of Correction designated by the commissioner of the department and is suitable for the confinement of that prisoner. So there's the language. They pulled that language exactly, as suitable for the confinement of that prisoner and provided that space is available. That is what they're saying pursuant to that language. But that's not the action portion of the statute. That's not, like, they didn't make the finding that he's in either danger of serious bodily injury or death, which that's what we're going to talk about afterwards. So they use that language in there. And then for the purpose of this chapter, an inmate is not considered in danger of serious bodily injury or death due to an illness or a medical condition. So as far as that last sentence, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about whether or not this move was in order to get Richard moved so that he can get some proper mental health treatment. To me, that last sentence basically takes that concept out of play, because I think that mental health would fall under illness or medical condition. And I don't think that would be something that they would move him for, which leaves us with this top portion, which is that he was in danger of serious bodily injury or death, or the part that I don't think applies either, which represents a substantial threat to the safety of others. He's in 23 hours SAG. The guy's not in Gen Pop. He's not walking around. He's not a threat to anybody. So as far as I'm concerned, the way that I read this morning, my initial instinct was like, wow. So they moved him without a court hearing. And frankly, this would have had to go in front of Gull. And I don't know if Gull is back on the bench. I don't know if she is healed up from whatever her ailment was, but I think that this was a move that was made with this thing pending in the Supreme Court of Indiana. And I think, like, in my estimation, the way that I felt about it, and I was texting with Kara Weineke, who wrote helped on the first original action and drafted the second one with Mark Lehman. This morning, I'm like, look, do you think that this was some kind of statement by the AG, in the sense that we know that Gull had stated in her bullet points, and that McClellan had stated in open court, that with respect to Baldwin and Rosie's petition to get him moved under the Safekeeping Act, that they lied. So Gull said, I don't think that she used the exact word lied, but I think that she said that they made misrepresentations. McClellan flat out said in open court that they lied in this thing. So you've got that hanging out there. You've got that concept that everything that Baldwin and Rosie were saying with respect to his prisoner of war type conditions that he's being housed in were untrue, and she based that on a warden coming in and making self-serving statements on the stand, about, like, and I've said it on multiple lives, like, anybody who thinks that a warden of a prison is going to come into open court and make admissions to to wrongdoing that's going on in his prison is dreaming. Like, it's never happening. It opens up the prisons to massive 1983 civil rights claims. It's like, that would never happen. So of course he's going to get on the stand and he's going to deny anything that they're alleging. And again, Baldwin and Rosie aren't taking tours of Westville. They asked, they were denied. And they are basically, as I talked about it the other night, they're ushered into a conference room, a small room, and Rick's brought in there. And then they have their meeting, or they don't, because they're being filmed with some dude, with a camcorder. So as far as that goes, where it kind of lays with me is that I believe that, to me, this was some kind of veiled message from the AG that I think in some ways attacks the judge's statement that she thought that they were misrepresenting what was going on in that jail. I mean, when you're using this particular portion of the statute, when they didn't follow it, they didn't procedurally follow the statute. They didn't file a motion. They didn't go in front of the judge. They just moved him and then gave notice that they moved him. Now, again, this could be a situation wherein they could, that this is commonplace, that they'll move. They don't actually go to hearing often, and then they'll move people if they have to move them, and that this is seen as a formality, or maybe not. Like I asked Kara, she didn't necessarily know the answer. I asked Shay as well, and he wasn't really clear on it either. And frankly, in terms of this kind of aspect, it's collateral to your representation to your client. Like, you're trying to deal with the underlying case. And right now you've got Brad and Andy that are sitting on the sidelines wondering if they're going to get back in the case. And you've got his attorneys, his current attorneys, that from what I've heard have not done much at this point. Not that I blame them. I mean, they're sitting in limbo as well. I think probably if I was in that situation, I would be probably not diving into the case. I'd probably be waiting out to see what the Supreme Court's going to decide before I start putting in a huge amount of hours working on a case that I'm not 100% certain that I'm going to be actually trying the case. So, I'm not trying to cast shade on those guys for not doing anything, but, I don't think that they've been very active with respect to the case so far. So, basically that has to leave us wondering what's going on. Like, why are they moving him? Have they heard something about, things that are going on and what, and I'm talking about they being the attorney general, like what prompted this move at this moment in time? And, I've been obviously chatting with people all day, and it's been, everybody kind of scratching their heads in terms of why, and all of us just kind of pontificating and trying to figure out like what this move is all about. We're trying to figure out, okay, well, is Westville closer to Allen County, which I believe that it is. This is further from Allen County where his current attorneys are. Is it closer to Brad and Andy? Did that have some part of it? Did they just feel like this facility is safer? Do they feel that this facility has, better facilities in terms of being able to deal with if he's got mental health issues going on? Like, were they concerned? Were they buying into the Odin thing? Were they concerned about the fact that two of these dudes had Odin patches? Were they concerned with, and it was a footnote, like unequivocally, it was a footnote in the memo talking about, in theory, that, because Rick was being filmed, that, the situation very well may have occurred where they said, hey, look, we're going to do harm to your family unless you just fess up to killing the girls. And, and then they footnote it saying, look, this isn't what Rick actually said. But then they do go on to say what he actually was saying, which was that he was mumbling, where he would ask, is my family okay? Is my family okay? Is my wife okay? So it's like people acting like the footnote was there without any kind of substance behind it, I think is a little disingenuous, because if they read the memo, they saw that he was saying things like, is my wife okay? Like, as soon as they would come in, they said he was kind of mumbling and incoherent when he was asking it. So, we've got all these things kind of working together, and I'm not to the point where I'm always concerned. I've been concerned throughout my entire career about my clients in jail, awaiting trial, especially in a high profile case. It's a scary proposition. And the fact of the matter is that, people that don't have experience with prisons, that don't understand what goes on in prisons, which I'm assuming is a vast majority of you. I'm assuming that a vast majority of you have neither been to prison as an inmate or a convicted felon, or that you're not an attorney that has been into a prison specifically defense attorneys, because prosecutors are very rarely going to prisons. I mean, maybe there's some circumstances, but defense attorneys are in there quite a bit. Or you work in one. I mean, if you're not familiar with what goes on in prisons, and you find it hard to believe that guards would be trying to intimidate people into, especially in a pretrial case, into confessing to crimes, especially crimes that have befallen two beautiful little girls, you're just not being realistic, because prisons are not a pleasant place. Like, you just need to understand that. They are a violent atmosphere. They are filled with angry people. They're filled with violent people. They're filled with guards who have little to no regard for the people that are being housed there, and it's just a very dangerous environment. And when you have a case that's this high profile, you always have to worry about the safety of your client, whether it's from the guards themselves or whether it's from the inmates. And they seem to have taken the inmate aspect out of play because he's in segregation. But, the guard thing, and I'll just, like, if you listen to the podcast, if you've listened to the Garcia season, like the similarities between when they were housing Garcia, not in a prison, but in the Douglas County Jail in Omaha, Nebraska, which is a big facility. Omaha is a pretty major city, so it was a very large facility, and they tortured the hell out of Garcia, not necessarily physically, but it's the mental and psychological torture that goes on, where they're just constantly in the guy's head, and just depriving him of sleep, for days on end. It's like all those things that get to people. And then when you combine it with him being in a cage for 23 hours a day with no human contact, it becomes brutal. And then when you couple that with the fact that he's not getting his mail from his mother, he's not getting his mail from his wife, he is not able to make outgoing phone calls. And I know that, like, for a fact. And that means that he's being cut off from everybody that can give him any kind of support, whether it's moral support, emotional support, whatever the case may be. And look, like, I don't care where you stand on the innocent or guilt phase of this, because we're not there. We're not even close to being there right now. We can completely disagree with that. And this isn't me being biased. This is me being human. And this is me being a defense attorney who cares about the Constitution and human rights and civil rights. And what's going on with this case is just insane. Like I'm not going off half-cocked here. It's like everything that's going on is incredibly concerning. And the fact that he's getting moved, and I can tell you that I know for a fact that Kathy Allen was not advised that her husband was being moved. Like, she had no idea that he was being moved from one prison to another. And, it's just like stuff like that has to make you wonder. Because again, no matter where you're sitting on, I think he's guilty as hell. I think that spent bullet, the spent, cartridge or the unspent cartridge and him admitting that he was there. Like, what else do you need? If you're in that camp and you think that he's guilty, or you're in the camp where I'm at, where I need to see more. Like, I'm not even close to thinking that they have enough evidence to show that he has committed these crimes, but like, everything is pending trial, right? Like, we have to wait for trial. And, at that point, then we can all reach a final conclusion. But until that happens, but no matter where you're at in that particular scenario, like, you have to care about the Constitution. You have to care about just human rights and people and how they're treated awaiting trial in a case like this, where, he's in absolute peril at all times in there. And this concept. And look, we're all going to at some point hear these confessions. Like they're going to be made, but like they are going to be played. We are going to hear all of them, and we're going to hear the context in which they were made. We're going to hear what he says. We're going to hear his tone, his tenor. We're going to hear if he was asking a question. We're going to hear like it'll all be made apparent, I can just tell you that from a defense attorney's perspective, who's handled cases this size, that when you're representing somebody that you truly believe is innocent, and look, Brad and Andy Baldwin have heard the confessions. And what I'm trying to tell you is that those two guys absolutely, unequivocally believe with all their hearts that Richard Allen is innocent of this. This isn't like the lawyer game that they're playing. This isn't the press conference early in where my client's innocent of all charges. We're way beyond that. This is like post memo. This is deep into discovery. This is 1,000 hours into the case. And these guys, it's like that conversation I have a lot on my podcast when I'm talking about, whether or not my clients ever come in and admit things to me. And typically they don't. Most clients will say, nah, I didn't do this, man. Like I didn't do this shit. And I say, all right, because I don't ask them if they did it, because for my job, that answer to that question does not matter. My job is to make sure that they get a fair trial, to make sure that the police followed the law and didn't violate the Constitution, and make sure that the prosecution is doing the same thing. So like that's what the bottom line of my job is, and to also make sure that my client understands the process. Those are kind of the parameters of my job. Now, I have an ethical duty to zealously represent my client, which I always do. And I think that most defense attorneys try their best to do that. Do all of them? Of course not. But like, there's always going to be good lawyers, and there's always going to be shitty lawyers on both sides. There's going to be great prosecutors who are amazing, who can sell a story, who can sell, like anything to anybody. And same with the defense side of it. I say it again on the podcast all the time. When you're talking about prosecutors and you're talking about defense attorneys, you're talking about storytellers. You're talking about people that were not at the scene of the crime when the crime was committed, okay? Just like law enforcement wasn't. And if you've got a circumstantial case, you've got two different sides that are looking at the exact same evidence, and both sides are developing a theory on what happened, knowing, as long as we all remember, that neither the prosecution nor the defense attorney were there when it happened. So what they're doing is they're coming up with a theory of the case. Okay, that's what they call it. It's a theory of the case based on the evidence. So in this case, we know that their theory is that Rick Allen is the guy, that he gave this statement that he was at the bridge at or around the time the girls went missing, and that, he admitted to owning a 40 caliber weapon. They did a search of the house. There's various, witnesses that claim that they saw somebody, even though as many times as I've read that, every single one of those witnesses gives a different description of who they saw. But that goes to what eyewitness accounts are worth. Like, to me, they have very little weight. They have very little weight, because when you're talking about eyewitnesses in a case, depending on what the factual pattern is, if it's a gun case where there's guns being fired, people just aren't getting good looks at people that are shooting weapons at or around them. Like, you're typically ducking and trying to make sure that you don't get killed. So you're typically not getting a good look at people when they're shooting at you. In this case, where you're talking about walking across a railroad trestle, where the railroad ties are far enough that you need to be looking at your feet in order to not fall into the river below, so like you're just not, and beyond that, when you talk about eyewitnesses, like, I don't even know why I'm trying the case. Forget about all that. But, so like, no matter where we're at on any of that stuff, see, I get in that rabbit hole. Like, I can't believe people look at that PCA and think it's strong. I don't know, but, call me crazy, or call me an experienced lawyer. Like, in my estimation, I've seen 1,000 PCAs, and that one ain't it. So, we have to wonder what the motive is. Now, I'm going to dig through the chat here. Like, Allie couldn't join me today. If we've got a lot of people here. We got 870 people. If my mods can look through, I'd like to hear some theories. I'd like to hear what people think are going on here. To me, I like to believe, I think that this was the Attorney General basically taking a step back from Gull, in that he cited this particular statute because he didn't have to cite it. Like, he had already moved Allen. He didn't have to say pursuant to the statute necessarily. I mean, especially if they're not going to procedurally follow it at all and not file a motion, not bring it in front of a judge, and not make the findings that had to, or not meet the burden that has to be shown to the judge in order for them to order it. Like, none of that took place. So why cite the thing, other than the fact that I think that this is in direct contravention to what the judge stated, that these guys were lying about what was going on with Richard, that the AG must be of the mindset that he's concerned about Allen making it to trial, like physically. So, I don't know. That's the way that I feel about this one. All right, so I'm going to throw some questions up here. So Tim Prater makes me wonder if a new judge is coming because Gull denied his move. Twice? Yeah, once. It was twice. She denied it after hearing the first time, and then the second time she just ruled from the bench without the benefit of having a hearing. In her mind, nothing had changed. It's like the facts are the facts, and the judge in that particular in the situation where she was hearing the hearing about the safekeeping and trying to get him moved the first time, she heard the evidence, and it's absolutely within the judge's discretion to choose who she's going to believe and who she's not. And in that particular situation, she absolutely believed, all the state actors. She believed, the sheriffs, and she believed the warden, everybody that testified on behalf of the state. And she chose not to believe what the defense was putting forward. Now, that's a far cry from them being liars. Like it's that kind of stuff, or just being like the way that she terms things, it really does reflect a bias to me. It's like judges can rule on things and they can deny motions, and they don't need to personally attack the defense attorneys when they're doing it. And you just kind of see that on repeat here. And it's one of the reasons that I just wonder what's going on with the case in general, because it's disconcerting. All right. So thanks for that question, Tim. Dane Paul with the $50 hour. Thanks for coming on today. Do me a favor, $10 for the squeaky door. That's actually my chair. And then $40 for the boss lady's golden microphone. That's actually her computer. But Dane, you're just a jewel. Thank you so much for that. Incredibly. But I am going to use it to get her computer. So that's actually in the works. So thank you very much for that. All right, Laura, 50 Defense Diaries podcast memberships. Wow. Thank you so much. That's amazing. All right. Delightfully chaotic. Why would he put himself there? So we're going back to the facts. See, I knew I shouldn't have started talking about it. It's like we all rabbit hole right into it. Why would he put himself there when they would never have known just to help and etc. They never would have known that he was there if he didn't help by telling him that he was there. I obviously agree with you. The counter argument to that is that he was trying to get in front of it. Like he was of the mindset, those folks on the guilty side, where they've already convicted him, are like, well, he had to put himself there so that he didn't get caught in a lie, because they were going to figure out he was there. They were ultimately I don't know how they think that they were ever going to subpoena his phone records if they didn't know he was there at all. As far as we know, they're not going to be able to tell from the bridge guy picture that that's Richard Allen. The thing is you just can't make out the guy's face, so they're how are they getting to him if he didn't, They don't see him in any of the videos where they like walking back from, where he was parked. There's nowhere that they would have seen him. And there was nothing that they could have done from the witness statements that would have helped them figure out it was him that they were talking about. So I agree. Like, I agree. Like, I've never understood that concept of like how people think that they would have figured out it was him if he didn't come forward and thereby exposing his lie. If somebody in the chat can explain that concept to me, I would love to hear it. It's like there's a couple of YouTubers that I've watched that are heavy pro guilty, and it's like that's just one of the questions that I have, and it's legitimate. I'm not trying to be like a jerk about it. I would like to know how are you explaining that he's getting in front of it when they never would have known he was there. He never would have put it together. I mean, he made the statement and they waited 5 years before they figured out, oh, maybe it's him. So I'm not feeling that one. Libby Nabby, why isn't he being allowed to make and receive phone calls? And why are they withholding his mail? How can they get away with any of this? Well, he is allowed to make phone calls, but he can't receive phone calls. And like, he's had, like in Westville, he had a tablet. Now the state said that he had broken it. And who knows whether or not that's true. Like, it's just like whatever they come in and say, there's no way to disprove it. Like there's no way for us to ever disprove what happens in a prison, because it's a prison. Like like what was going on with Garcia in our case, like the guy was like, they're torturing me. Like, he's like, they're using they're banging on the walls. They keep my lights on every night. They're pounding on the walls so I can never sleep. They're telling me that, I need to confess to the murders. I mean, it's like the same thing, and especially when you've got a situation where you've got kids involved. Like when there's kids involved, it's like a whole nother level in prison in terms of like just the fear factor of being the inmate, or being the pretrial detainee. It's like you have to worry about getting killed, like legitimately. It's one of those things that happens. And if you don't think that a guard turning a blind eye to a dude getting shanked in prison means that guard is a party to it, then you don't understand the law. And you don't understand accountability under the law. But again, the problem is you're never going to be able to prove it. They know every blind spot in a prison. They just do. They know where there's going to be blind spots where cameras aren't going to see. That's where the dirty deeds take place all the time. So it's like that whole part of it. I don't know. And to be honest with you, when you have a kid, like, let's just pretend, just for the purposes of an exercise, let's just pretend that Rick Allen's actually innocent. Okay. Like just imagine, if you would, like, if you're on the guilty side, just suspend disbelief for a second. So, okay, just let your mind get to like, this guy's innocent. Okay. And he's sitting in prison now. At this point, he was in Westville for over a year. Now he's been transferred to another prison. He's in solitary 23 hours a day. Whatever they may or may not be doing to him, it's still prison. He's got no human contact. And we know that he's not getting his mail. So what they do, and to answer your question about the mail, is they're cutting him off from every source of any kind of support. Like the only time that Kathy Allen's ever hearing from Rick Allen is when he calls her, and like he's just not getting the mail. Like, and you're asking how and why? Well, that's the why, to continue to psychologically torture him by removing any semblance of a support system. And again, that's why I'm asking you to put your brain in a place where, imagine if you were innocent, sitting in that condition for a year, and they've cut you off to the entire world. The only people that you see are when your attorneys come in, and in Westville, the attorneys weren't even able to like communicate with him openly because they're filming him. It's not how it's supposed to be, people. Like, I'm not going to sit here and scream and rant and rave. It's just not how it's supposed to be. And if you can't see that, then you need to look at yourself in the mirror and question your own humanity, because it's inhumane. And I don't know if Rick Allen's innocent or guilty, because I haven't heard all the evidence. The thing needs to go to trial. I think that he's innocent. Like, I'm not shy about saying that. I am firmly in the innocent camp. I do not believe he's the guy for a multitude of reasons, starting with that PCA and then ending with what we saw in the memo in terms of what they don't have in terms of evidence. And people are like, oh, well, they solve crimes all the time without DNA and fingerprints and, nothing on his electronics linking him to the girls or the crime scene. Do they? I mean, they can. They don't do it all the time. And when you've got a PCA like that, you're going to need more, and the other thing that I base and again, like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm not a defense attorney. I'm not going to pretend I'm not a defense bar guy. I'm not going to pretend that I haven't tried cases like this. I'm not going to pretend that I haven't represented people that I truly believed were innocent, and that I know what that looks and feels like in terms of representing that person. And I'm just telling you that everything that I've seen from Baldwin and Rosie have all the earmarks of two lawyers that completely and totally, based on their evaluation of the evidence, completely believe that they have the wrong guy in prison. And they're doing everything in their power to make sure that an innocent man does not go to prison on their watch. Because once somebody is convicted, it's done. Like, getting them out is like literally moving mountains to try to get a new trial. Now, the one exception here is if Scoyne ends up keeping Baldwin and Rosie off, I think it's an automatic redo. I think they're automatically going to get a Sixth Amendment bang by the appellate court, and I think they're going to have to try the case again. I think it's like this is not a continuity argument anymore. These were not appointed attorneys anymore. When they entered their appearance with the clerk of court that morning, they then became his attorneys of choice, who had also been working the case for 1,000 hours for over a year, and who had done depths after depths after depths and had filed a 136-page motion. I mean, that's a lot of action on a case. These aren't a couple of lawyers that were just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, filing one motion in the course of a year. It was quite the opposite. These were two guys that were actively trying that case. So, no matter which way it goes with Scoyne, if it goes that way, where they turn them down and say, sorry, you're keeping Gull on, and y'all, good luck, but you're not coming back. In my estimation, it's an automatic redo, and then that's where it's going to end up. So, I could be wrong. Been wrong many times in my life, and I'm not a soothsayer. I don't have a crystal ball, but that I can tell you, I very, very, very strongly feel that he'll get a new trial if those guys aren't brought back on. All right. All right. Let's see. Thanks, Jay. Appreciate that, brother. Okay. Okay. Who dis? Why haven't they arrested the other actors yet? You'd have to ask Liggett and Carter. I have no idea. Birdie 81. This is about all of our rights as citizens. What is happening to our Constitution? Has it always been this way? And am I just now noticing that the scales of balance are not balanced? Yes, it's always been that way. And I look, it's an imperfect system. It just is. That being said, it's still the best system in the world. Like theoretically, it's the best system in the world. I'd have to sit here for hours on end, telling you about all the issues in the system. And it ranges from poverty and mental illness and drug abuse and alcohol addiction. And, when you start to look at the root causes of why most crimes are committed, it almost always falls into mental health and or addiction to either drugs and alcohol. Is that to say that there obviously aren't murders and other violent crimes that take place is heat of the moment? Of course. Are there crimes that take place because of revenge? Absolutely. It's certainly one of the things in terms of motive that's out there. Revenge, money, but like that's the motive. What we're talking about is the point in time where a person moves from being rational to that moment in time to where they make a decision in the blink of an eye. Even because even if it's premeditated, even if somebody's like planning it, like for weeks on end, you still got to do the deed. And it's that moment in time when you shift from being a rational human being to no longer being rational and being out of control of your faculties, whether it's your mental faculties or it's your ability to be able to process information in a way that you're doing what's in your own best interest, like whatever that breakdown is mentally, like it always has something to do with that. So when you're talking about the system and when you're talking about like the poverty stricken, which I don't need to tell you, like just go look at the numbers. Like the vast majority of people in prison are poor and Black or people of color. Those are facts. And when you talk about those folks that are arrested, sometimes rightfully so, sometimes not, and they're just ground up in the system by a system where the state has all the power and all the resources, it's inherently unfair. It just is, because the prosecutor's office, if they need an expert, they got an expert. If they need their cops to go out and do more investigation, they've got their cops to go out and do more investigation, and then the prosecutors get to play the good guy role because they're always putting the bad guys in jail, so they have the public support. When you think about the defense side of it, it's a much different thing, and I say it all the time on my podcast and I say it all the time on here, like the one thing that I never want you guys to forget is that it's not the prosecution and it's not the cops that are upholding and protecting the Constitution for all of us as citizens. It's us. And that's it. We are the last line of defense against government tyranny. If the defense attorneys aren't filing motions to suppress or motions to quash based on warrants or based on searches that were bad, then you know what happens? Then the cops do whatever the hell they want to do, whenever the hell they want it, to whoever they want to do it. Like we live in a completely different society if we don't file those motions saying, hey, Mr. Law Officer, you violated this guy's constitutional right. You conducted a search that was illegal. Like you have rules, you broke them, and the punishment for that is the judge is going to suppress your evidence, which could mean in that case that guy walks. Don't blame the lawyer. Don't blame the defense attorney for that. Blame the cop for violating the Constitution. It's that simple. This is not like a complex thing, but the problem with our country, and I know I'm on a bit of a soapbox here, but I'm a defense attorney. I might not be your flavor, but there's one thing that I'm never not going to do is explain the fact that we are the carriers and the protectors of the Constitution, not the state and the cops, us and us alone. But like if those things, if that guy walks and you're pointing your finger at the defense attorney saying, oh, some scumbag lawyer got him on a technicality, you're pointing your finger at the wrong person. You need to be pointing your finger at the cop who violated the law. Next time, do better. Follow the law. Get the probable cause you need to do the search. And then you're not going to have a problem. Because when I never win suppress motions or motions to suppress or motions to quash, when the cops follow the law. I never win them. Ever. Judge is like, no, motion denied. Cop followed the law. The only time we win them is when the cops violate the law. And they violate people's constitutional rights. So and if you think that it doesn't apply to you because you're not a criminal, it's not the prudent way to think about it. And trust me, we do not want to live in a country where our constitutional rights are no longer in existence. Just believe me when I tell you that. All right, Travis. Sorry, Birdie got me on that. Blame Birdie81 for my little diatribe there. Travis, theory, no idea, total guess. When I first heard, I figured that an IA was started over patches, moved to a prison where they knew no patches are tolerated. It's possible. I mean, like I'm not, whether people want to believe it or not, the dudes in the prison, and they have to believe it at this point. I mean, you can't not believe that the guards were wearing Odin patches because the state admitted it in their affidavits. The cops themselves, the guards, admitted that they were only but of course they're saying, look, this is just because we love Odin. Like this, we're not some part of some kind of like cult gang. We're not racist, murdering, marauding brood of guards. We're just guys who love Odin. I mean, take that for what it's worth. I mean, doesn't make me feel super comfortable. I'm not going to lie. I don't think that I've ever seen a guard on a state issued uniform put their own patches on there of any kind. So it's disconcerting. So yeah, I'm not certainly not dismissing that concept there, Travis. Thanks, man. The KS Griffith, why is it acceptable for Carroll County to maintain that they can't guarantee his safety? If you know that your officers are corrupt, freaking clean up your house. All right. I mean, I'm with you. I think that the thing with Carroll County, it's a really small jail. But the thing is that Cass County is not. I mean, it's definitely a big enough sized county jail to house Allen. The sheriff over there said we could house him. We don't want to, but we could. And, so that, like, when I walked out of that hearing back in June, I'm like, all right, and this is before I realized what was going on with Gull. Like this is back when I was like, oh man, they got a real experienced judge on this case. I'm optimistic because this is going to be a big, crazy trial. Like any big case, you need a judge that's competent up on the bench because they have to deal with a lot. They have to deal with all of us. They have to deal with the lawyers. They have to deal with the press. They have to deal with the publicity. There's a lot of moving parts. So you need a competent, experienced judge on the bench. And when I looked at her on paper, I'm like, all right. So, I immediately changed my opinion of her is after I heard these allegations and when she just decided unilaterally to believe everything that the state was saying, knowing as a judge, an experienced judge who's sitting up there, knowing that everybody on that side of it was just giving self-serving testimony. Like no one in that position is ever going to throw themselves under the bus. They're not the defendants in the case. They're witnesses. And especially when you're talking about the warden. I'm not going to repeat that part of it because I've already said it, but like that dude is never going in there and creating massive amounts of liability by substantiating every claim that every inmate is making coming out of that prison. And believe me, there's a ton. We've all seen the Baston stuff. I mean, you see what he's saying. I mean, that guy got bum rushed. If you're to believe him, and I believe him, just do. All right. I agree. Clean up the house. No question. Shannon L., what is a safekeeping order? You might have answered it already. Basically, the safekeeping order was Liggett decided that he did not think that he was going to be able to keep Richard Allen safe in the Carroll County Jail. And he independently decided that he was going to get him moved, which is what precipitated the move to Westville. So, and that was interesting, because Rosie in that cross-examination, he's like, well, it's like, I see what you wrote here. And it turns out that you actually had the court helping you write that, which was unbelievable. Like, some of the paragraphs in there, the court had helped edit lightly. And I don't know that it may have been Diener Could have been a clerk. I don't know. But he's like, yeah, no, I had him look at it and they sent it back with a couple of changes. But the bottom line being is that he did not have any evidence of either phone calls or eyewitnesses or anybody that had actually said, wrote, or done anything that had actually put Richard Allen in any kind of jeopardy. So he's like, and that's like, you're reading the statute here. Like Rosie was asking him these exact questions. Okay, so what evidence do you have of that there's been a substantial threat to the safety of Richard Allen? What is your evidence that he's in imminent danger of great bodily harm or death? And Liggett's like, I don't have any. It's a gut. Like it's my feeling. Like I know how volatile this case is. And and look, it didn't help that you got Diener talking about bloodlust, and then jumping off the case. It's like you had those things moving in that direction early on. But, so that's how he ends up there, and that's basically what it was. And it was under the precipice that it was for Richard Allen's safekeeping. Thank you for the question, by the way. Where's Shelley? Dash Erica. Possibly they're moving him near where the Superior Court is moving the trial. I mean, as of now, there's been no order that they're moving the trial. It's taking place in Carroll County, and they are, at least at this juncture, importing a jury from Judge Gull's home court, Allen County, which, there's so much that has to be litigated in this case, guys. It's like crazy. Like I feel awful for the families. If Labredo and Scremin stay on, I will put money on it. There is no way this thing is going October 15th of next year. No way. Especially if they haven't really started digging in yet. And again, I don't really blame them. If they're not digging in at this point, they don't know if they're going to be on the case. Sure, they can assume it because they've been appointed, but this is a very tenuous situation. And, when you're in the sphere, the legal sphere, in whatever jurisdiction you're in, everybody's talking. Everybody knows somebody. Oh yeah, I got a buddy that's a clerk at the appellate court. This is the whispers I'm hearing. That kind of stuff is going around all the time. In every jurisdiction. It's like in my jurisdictions, we hear about everything. You hear about state's attorneys, defense attorneys, you hear about like it all just circulates. So the same kind of stuff that goes on in terms of the facts of the case, where, it's just been just an insane whirlwind on Reddit and on Twitter with respect to the crime scenes and to all the speculation that's been going on. The same thing happens in the legal world, except it's not about the facts of the case, because the lawyers know what the facts of the case are. They're in a different position than we are, but they're hearing stuff. So, they've got to be talking about the fact if Labredo and Scremin are on, they cannot import a jury from her county. I think they got to pick another county. So that's going to have to be heard. And the question becomes, do Scremin and Labrado even file that motion? It's my biggest concern with those two guys, and especially Labrado, is I think that they're just handpicked by Gull, literally, especially Labrado. I just think he's a handpicked guy for her. I think that these are two guys that are not going to be filing 136-page memos under any circumstances. And, if you're sitting there saying, good, well, then you don't understand what zealous advocacy is. And you don't you've never had an innocent person in prison with a defense team that's doing everything in their power to make sure they don't get convicted. It's just for that person who's sitting there saying good, it's that means that you have to be a person that never thinks that law enforcement gets the wrong guy, or that the prosecutors never convict innocent people. I don't know how many people you have to see get exonerated for you to understand that that's just simply not the case, and that they always get it right. I've got a buddy, Adam Malone, who's got an awesome YouTube channel that you guys should follow. He deserves a much bigger following. It's Cletus, Cletus on Crime, or a real crime with Cletus. That's what it's called. And he intentionally misspells everything. It's hilarious. But he's big on Alan's guilty. Alan's the guy, and like, and he's made this statement to me a few times, and I think it resonates with a lot of people, that he can't recall a case of this size where they got the wrong guy. And when he said that, he's like, man, I don't know. He might be right. I clearly think OJ did it. So, he was acquitted anyway, but like in terms of huge cases, like of this ilk where they got the wrong guy, I don't know. Maybe somebody in the chat knows of one, maybe, but my response to that is, so what? That doesn't mean anything, in the hit, like, it's like you got to take each case as it comes. It's like you take each case by the facts that it presents, by the evidence it presents. And I'm just telling, anybody out there that'll listen, take a closer look at this thing. Take a look at what they say that they have, but more importantly, skip all the Odinism shit in the memo and just go to what the things that the defense is saying that they don't have, especially when they're attaching the exhibits with and Sleuthy posted them on Twitter yesterday. It's like solid gold. It's like from the depositions of Liggett and Holman, the Indiana State cop, talking about the depositions where Rosie and Baldwin are asking them, so you don't have DNA, right? You don't have any proof whatsoever that Rick Allen had any contact with the girls on any of his electronic devices. Correct. You don't have any fingerprints, including on the unspent casing. Correct. It's like they have no evidence of Rick Allen, which then brings you to the place like, is this just a crime of opportunity? Like, that is such a tough sell for me. That Rick Allen, one day with no history of violence whatsoever, that has a wife and raised a daughter through college, that he has just all of a sudden decided to wake up on the 13th of February and go murder two girls on a bridge. It's an awful tough sell for me. It just is, it's such a tough sell for me. I know what the criminal mind looks like more than any prosecutor could ever, because they don't deal with defendants other than in a courtroom. I deal with them personally. Like, this guy doesn't have any of the earmarks of somebody who'd be capable of doing this. Like, I'm not seeing it. And I might be proven wrong. And I will be the first guy on here to say, man, thank God they got the right guy. I promise you that. After trial, if they have the evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he's the guy, I will be the first guy to say, man, I was dead wrong. They got the right guy. I'll eat crow all day, but I ain't even close to that. Not at this point. All right. Sorry, I keep getting on these soapboxes, but it's that kind of case. I'm always going to talk about it. The KS Griffith, $2 holla. Appreciate you. My girl Teresa's in the house. What's up? Another great YouTube channel, Criminality. Check her. She's my girl. She's awesome. Does the AG know the SCOIN is about to rule on the original actions? It's a great question. And I actually asked the exact same question to Kara this morning. I'm like, do you take this? I asked that like precisely. I think if I looked up the text, that's exactly what I asked Kara. I'm like, do you think that the AG got word from up on high they're about to rule? And Kara's response was, no, I don't think so. So, not in the sense that they're not going to rule, but just that she doesn't think that, because that's an ex parte conversation, because he filed a response in pleading. You know what I'm saying? So it's like ex parte conversations in the world of the law are a no-no. And ex parte conversations, for those of you that don't know what they are, that's where, like, if a defense attorney goes in and tries to talk to the judge without the state being there, that's ex parte. So like, I don't think so. It would be highly irregular. Considering what's going on with this case, is it possible? Of course it is, but highly unlikely. Great question, though. Thank you. The KF Griffith. Oh, $20 holla. Boop. Thank you so much. Appreciate that more than you know. All right, Kit Kat. Shouldn't it be legal? Shouldn't it be a legal issue that Fran Gull and Slick Nick are Masons? Also interesting to note, Brad Holder and Slick Nick are in the same brotherhood. Isn't that a conflict of interest? I mean, if it's true, I don't know that's a conflict because, I mean, that's a defense theory of the case. It's got to be vetted at trial. I mean, I get what you're saying, but number one, Brad Holder is not a defendant in the case. So I don't see where the conflict is there. Like, do I think that it's an awful look considering what the defense's theory of the case is? Of course I do. But if you're talking about a conflict of interest in terms of, the law, not necessarily. Now, if Fran Gull and Nick McClelland are Masons, I mean, again, like, I think people are allowed to be a part of groups. Whether or not that's a look that's good, I don't know. But I don't know that either of those things are true. I've certainly seen that said. So I can't say that it's not true, but I certainly can't say that it is either. And I'm honestly, like, if you don't know anything about me, I'm not speculating on stuff that I don't know to be fact. So could be true. I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I don't see a conflict there. Thank you for the question. Sleuthy. Frank is an IMEI, is used for GSM, and MEID is used for CDMA networks. It's only about the network. All right. So, Sleuthy, you need to translate that for me. I have no idea what any of that means. And I adore you. It's just like Frank, and like I don't know if it's a typo. I want to know what you said, so retype it if you're still here. Oh, that's just Dizzy. One of my awesome mods. Thank you. Emily, $5 holla. Did you listen to the Murder Sheet interview with Michael Osbrick? Great interview, and he had some nice things to say about you. I did not, but I read the transcript, and I actually meant to hit Michael up on Twitter because like we've been rubbing shoulders recently, so I'm gonna let him know. I did see that he said some nice things, and I'm always appreciative of that. Because it's a tough world out there. I was like on Reddit today, and somebody's like, "Oh man, the way Bob talks to Allison, I just can't stomach it." I'm like, "Oh my god." Like, you're kidding me? Been married 20 years. She interrupts me all the time. Kidding. But she does. But, we're feeling our way through this YouTube thing. And like, there's one thing I want to address right away. Like, I see the comments, and they're not true. So, like, when I had Hennessy on, I definitely spoke too much. I think when Carol was on, I think I was more like, but I'm not a question answer guy. Like, if I'm having attorneys on my pod or on my YouTube channel, I'm having a discussion with them because I'm an attorney. I don't have questions about, if I have a specific question, like say it's an Indiana specific question, then I'll ask that question. Otherwise, I'm typically having a conversation, which means I'm not going to write out a list of questions and just ask questions and let the guests talk the whole time. I'm inviting them on to have a conversation. Now, if I'm putting on like an expert where it's not my field of expertise, it's a different story. Then it's a Q&A. Then I will have a list of questions and I'll ask them and they'll do most of the talking. So I just want to be clear about that. I am not like I love STS. I love Joel, but Joel has guests on and he just asks questions because that's a Q&A format. That's not what my format is. Like I'm a 20-year plus criminal defense attorney. I've got my own thoughts. If you want to hear just Q&As, there's tons of content out there because you're probably not going to get it as much as you want here. And I'm not going to apologize for it. Sorry. So, but I did tell Hennessy because like somebody was like, "Oh man, you talk too much." And I was like, "You think?" And the only reason that I said to Dave, it's like, "Oh man, I'm sorry I did that, dude. I was talking way too much." And he's like, was because he had texted me after that interview with Dave Hennessy. He's like, "Man, I've never been on an interview show like that where the interviewer talks so much." I was like, "Oh man." I was like, but I didn't warn him going in that I'm not like a Q&A guy. Like again, if there's guests that warrant questions and then I'm just listening to them answer for an entire thing, that's different. For me, they're conversational. If I have attorneys on, I guarantee you it's going to be conversations. And I try to give everybody as much grace and space as I can, but I'm only like, I'm a long-winded guy. Like if you haven't figured that out, and if you have and you don't like it, I'll see you. Sorry. I apologize, but I don't. Like I am who I am. All right, Laura. Oh, wait. Now, if the mods already put these up, I'm sorry. Annabelle, and look, and I've seen people complain like about me giving shout outs. Again, I'm sorry, but people are donating money and I'm going to give them the proper thank you always. Just like, don't ask me not to do that. Again, if that's enough to drop you from my content, then I'll see you later. Like I'm going to give people that take the time to write comments that are members and that are donating money to me. I'm going to thank them for it, like right in the middle of the show. So, Laura, thank you. Or Annabelle, thank you. Laura, $2 holla. Rest in peace, Abby and Libby. Yes, absolutely. Tornado Artist, $10 holla. Question: is this the AG's version of a forthwith letter to the clerk from Gull, trying to make the first original action moot and another prison? What about Cass? I'm with you. In terms of Cass, I don't know, man. I don't know like what the deal is with that. That's what I was saying about Gull. I lost faith in her when she didn't just move him to Cass. Like that was the easiest solution. Like we're not dealing with any of this right now. If she would have just moved him to Cass when you had the sheriff of Cass County saying we don't want him, but we can handle him. And for whatever reason, she decided not to, which is just so weird to me. I just don't get it. In terms of like, I don't know that this would be going to the first original action. I think it would be going to the second original action. And I don't think that would moot it, like all I can say about Gull and like that the prison thing and them lying, in her estimation, them lying in court and in their pleadings about the conditions of his confinement were an issue. And I think that this is kind of a backhanded slap, so to speak, at the judge's face in terms of like, all right, well, I know that you found that, but Judge Gull, but nonetheless, I'm moving him because I'm concerned about his safety. So I don't know how else you can like in any way, shape, or form look at this and kind of what it's doing and not see it that way. Like that, like because he used this language, like and he used this statute, and you had Gull calling, saying that they were misrepresenting the facts and that they were making things up, and you have McClellan calling them liars. Like I don't know. So to me, I think it served a bigger purpose, but that's 100% me speculating, obviously. Charmaine, $13, actually a $14 holler. You're amazing every single time. I appreciate you so much. All right. So my King of Kings, new member, thank you for joining. We love having you. Kristen, likewise, we love having you. Whoa, man. Nav Theo. Wow, another 50. Oh, that's 5. Is that 5 or 50? 50 Defense Diaries podcast memberships. Thank you so much. That's amazing. Man, that's so generous. Dawn Burke gifted 5 Defense Diaries. All right, so thank you so much, Dawn. I really appreciate that. Oh, man, you guys are being so generous today. Ellen Fagerland, $25 hollow. Thank you so much. All right, I think I got through all the super chats. All right, so mods, have you seen any questions from non-members that have asked questions that you think that I should look at? Like I hope I got to it. Like obviously this is me not knowing. Like I don't know what the impetus of this was. Like I can't know. I mean, I probably have ways that I could find out, but it's never going to be from the mind of the AG. All right. Okay. 50 need reading glasses. I do. 2 people gifted 50 for a total of 100 memberships. Woo! 5-0. Appreciate you. Like Sleuth, I couldn't read your other thing. It was a bunch of like acronyms. Travis, I've been on Lives with Bob. It's always a conversation, except I genuinely want to know another lawyer's point of view and his ability to explain legal concepts in plain, simple language. Thank you, man. I mean, I think it's my strong suit. You know what I mean? It's like you're a pretty brilliant guy, but you have kind of the same curse that Allison does. You're very legalese. You just speak in legalese. It's your language. It's your native language at this point in your career. And much like Allison, sometimes you guys can't translate legal concepts to lay people to where they can get it. And I think I'm kind of good at it. I answered this one, Maz. The safekeeping order, that was basically the order where Liggett had filed it pursuant to this particular statute that we were looking at. And they were going to basically keep him safe by moving him out of Carroll County. It was like you explained hollers to me. It's with Goothy video. Right. Exactly. All right. What else we got? Your strong suit is dumbing stuff down. I mean, like, I wouldn't say dumbing it down because I would definitely not be calling my subs dumbing down, but some legal concepts are tough to get for people that are lay people. And it's actually a great question. I don't know if you're trying to come at me, but I can tell you from practicing for 20 years, the countless number of people that were my clients that I would walk out of the courtroom that had never been in the system, that would walk out of the courtroom, like even in a status hearing, and be like, I didn't understand one word of what you said in there or what happened. Can you explain it to me? So like from that, I kind of figured out, look, all right, like lay people, and plus my podcast, like I take it that you haven't listened to my pod. Like it's kind of one of the bigger things. People are like, they love, it's your favorite time. It's my favorite time, where I like explain particular motions and aspects of the law. So yeah, definitely not calling people dumb. You dumb it down for me. I'm dumb. Jay, come on, dude. You're not dumb, brother. You're my brother from another mother, though. All right. Is that it? Is that all we got? Because I got to jump on with Anjanette Levy in like 12 minutes. So thank you all for coming. I hope there was some value in this. I am so thankful for all of you hanging with me. I'm so thankful for everybody that gave until it hurts. I'm so thankful for everybody that gave us some great questions. I really appreciated all of that. It was phenomenal. And I definitely thank my mods so much for being here and for doing all that you do, because like, I just don't have time to do it for me or myself. So it's amazing. All right. So you guys are the best. Like, stay tuned. You never know when I'm going to go live. And by the way, I am going to be dropping, like I dropped my Hennessy. I did record it. So I'm going to be dropping it as a video probably tomorrow on YouTube. It's been out as a pod. I wanted to kind of draw people to the podcast to listen to it, because remember, first and foremost, this is my baby, Defense Diaries podcast. If you have not listened to it or you don't listen to podcasts, give it a shot. It's pretty good. Like the Gacy thing is insanely good. Garcia, I think, is pretty good too. And the docket with me and Allie. Like, if you like us, you're going to love the pod. Like, if you don't like us and you think that I'm mean to Allison all the time, you're probably not going to like the pod. All right. So thank you guys. I appreciate y'all so much. Stevie made me an awesome new outro, which I'm going to play for y'all. I played it last night and it's just so good. But listen, there was over 1,000 of you in here. I love every single one of you, no matter what side of this you're on, whether you completely disagree with me. I love for you being here. I love for you engaging in the conversation. Like I said, I invite everybody. Everybody can come. Nobody needs to be like just know, like I'm not shady about what side I'm on this case. Typically, I'm objective. On this case, I'm defense side because I think old boy's getting screwed. Like, I think Rick Allen's getting screwed, plain and simple. Like, I just disagree with Brett and Alice of the prosecutors. I think they misapplied the constitutional, the law with respect to this. I think his Sixth Amendment right to counsel has been destroyed. I think his speedy rights have been destroyed. His speedy trial rights have been destroyed. Like, no one's changing my mind on it, And then I guess we'll find out who's right when scoring rolls on it. So I'm excited for that. So thank you guys for being here. Just facts. And remember, without you guys, I'm just an old man Talking about an old case. Talking to you.
I've